I guess we need an intro. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Exitpreneur 360 podcast. I'm here with Simone, and she's freaking out with me. And I'll tell you why. As I've literally this second just dropped the bomb on her that today's episode actually comes from a request from a friend of mine who's heard the podcast and tuned into it. And his feedback was, you know, dude, it would be interesting to hear Simone's story.
Who is this person?
Find him. And Simone, when I told her literally a couple of seconds before I hit record, and her initial reaction was, I knew you were going to do this to me. But it was inevitable because I've been complimenting you over the last few episodes about how much more comfortable you're seeming in front of the microphone, and you're getting more and more.
Doesn't mean I want to talk about myself.
Well, unfortunately, that's the topic for today, is you and your journey. So just by way of introduction, for those who are catching this as their first episode, potentially this is your first episode you're catching of the podcast. If it is, let me just introduce Simone briefly. Simone Lipshitz is my cousin, actually, like through family, somewhere along the line we're related. And I approached Simone many months ago, not many months ago, probably a month ago, and said, hey, Sim, I need some help with this podcast. I want to tell my journey, and I need someone to be my partner in the first few seasons. I have told her that she doesn't have to be here forever. I caught her at a very weak moment, and I managed to get her to say yes while she was carrying bags in Woolworths, and a phone call was coming through, and she just said yes. And now
weak moment. It's been fun though.
It has been fun, and I've held you to it. And this is probably our fifth or sixth or seventh time that we're recording, because we do try to do multiple episodes at a time. And last time we recorded, you really came out of your shell, and you started asking questions, and you started. I think the reason I thought you would be a good fit for me is because you're actually quite quiet and soft spoken, and I am a verbal diarrhea, verbose. Braggart, and so we're a good fit because you wouldn't interrupt me and you just let me talk shit and allow me to get what I want to get off my chest. But I think in the last episode you started to kind of come out your shell a little bit, and when I've been recording a few times when you didn't know I was recording, then you talk and you talk and you talk and you talk. So the bottom line is, somebody asked me, said, hey, it would be interesting to hear Simone's story and what's her background, where's she been, because a few times in the podcast I've referred to you and I've told people that you're an OG in the PR space in South Africa, OG being an original gangster, somebody who, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I was a journalist going on 20 years ago, you had a reputation, you still got a reputation in the PR industry of one of really premium quality public relations. So I'm going to switch the tables on you today and ask you to share your story about whatever you want to share, really. You don't have to worry. Obviously, as I said, I'll ask you questions. I'll get it out of you no matter what happens. But I think let's start at the beginning, let's start at right now. Let's start at the end. You're currently still running your agency, your PR agency, Headlines PR, right?
I am. Headlines. We're turning 28 next month.
Wow.
Yeah. So
this is
very,
good timing.
very grateful.
This is
very
good
timing, yes.
We can celebrate your birthday. We'll release this on your birth date. And you guys do PR.
So we're a traditional PR agency specializing in media relations.
Got you.
We do get involved in events, some crisis comms. We've done some newsletters in the past, but our main focus is media relations, relationships. So that's where our strength is.
Got you. And when you say media relations, you're referring to obviously literally relationships with the media in terms of newspapers and websites and radio stations on behalf of businesses.
Well, yes, but so the relationships is one part of it. Journalists are coming and going all the time. So what's more important than that is understanding what the client does and taking what they do and putting it into a media-friendly format and compiling angles or motivations, press release, opinion pieces that a journalist is going to be interested in.
Right.
So different approach for different kinds of media.
Right.
And we go across the board: TV, radio, online, print.
Got you.
Can we say print these days? Because
wasn't there a recent article about was it Lipshitz?
There's a lot of
they were shutting down. And I remember when someone sent it to me, and I thought, Jesus, is this even news that there's newspapers closing? Like, I haven't seen or read a newspaper in years.
No, I think it's been a long time coming, and now it's just. But I think the media industry is always having to evolve itself.
Right.
So I think this is just another evolution.
Right. And it actually took me back. I mean, obviously, my history being with print in FHM magazine, was my background was more in the magazine industry with UCM and Media 24. And I'm thinking back 10, 15 years when FHM finally did go under. And at the time, everybody going, oh, yeah, the internet's going to take over and it's done for magazines. 10, 15 years later, for newspapers to still kind of be around, but still not be around, it's pretty crazy that it's only happening now.
And
But it's
one of those things that has to happen with the change. I mean, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where it goes to next.
Yeah.
And I suppose we've just got to adapt with it.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Got you. So tell us a little bit about Headlines. How did you get started 28 years ago?
So 28 years ago, I studied advertising and marketing. I went to one PR lecture. Before that, actually, the year before I started at AAA. And I thought, well, this is a bunch of girls with boobs and balloons at cocktail parties, and thought it wasn't for me.
Oh, so it's not just me that good to know someone.
When I tell my clients that, they get very disappointed.
And I'm not sure you can say that on this podcast. We will get us banned. This woke culture that we live in.
So I never went back and studied advertising and copywriting. Also not sure why, because I can't write and I'm not creative. But so the first job I could get was in PR. I looked for months for my first job in advertising, and it was, I think, in 1990 in those days, and I think the industry was going through a bit of a recession. So 9 months in, and I got a job in PR. Stayed in one agency for 5 months, went to the next agency for a year and a half. And I think, unlike you, my journey, I've never worked in corporate. So I've only worked in agency. So at the end of the second agency stint, I was approached, and I did a project for a client, or for my friend's brother, my best friend's brother at the time, and he then said to me, come work for me full time. So I said, I made him a counter offer, and I said, let me consult to you, and he became my first client.
Okay, watch you.
So it was a very soft landing, and I was very, very lucky to get that opportunity.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to my second client, and there I held a media breakfast on a Thursday morning, which was a no-no because it was deadline day.
I remember you telling me that story. Yeah.
Deadline day for all the tech media. We were primarily in IT PR for like 10 years.
Right.
Only in tech PR. So Thursday morning was deadline day, but of course I was like green and wet behind the ears, didn't know a thing. And off I went and did this breakfast. And a journalist came to see, which poppy is...
Which moron.
Which moron. I'm trying to be polite. And then we landed up, he made me a proposal and said, let's join up and go and pitch for clients together. I did client service and media, and he did writing, and he had the tech knowledge. And we were an amazing team together, and we won some really great business. And from there, it just evolved. I employed a couple of people. I've gone over the years from having in-house writers to freelance to in-house, and currently we now have a team of about 5 freelance writers. And I found that model works best for me. Not all agencies work that way. But I find that I can service the clients from a writing skills, knowledge, deadlines, turnaround time, all of that. So
Gotcha.
That all works. And yeah, we went from one of my bedrooms in my home in Orange Grove to offices in Sandton to offices in Waverley. And currently now sharing office space with a digital marketing agency, CBR Marketing.
Gotcha.
So we found that our skills are quite complementary. So that's been a recent development over the last about year and a half.
Gotcha. Amazing.
That's the short story. We've broadened out into all industries. After primarily focusing on IT, then Y2K was happening and everyone thought the end of the world along with it. So it was quite tough to broaden out because our network was in tech.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted a PR agency, you would often ask a journalist or an editor, and we were always referred and mostly won the business. And that's how we grew, was through word of mouth.
Gotcha.
And then we were lucky enough to broaden outside of tech. Now we do hospitality, financial services, consumer, still do some tech, and across the board. And I've been really, really lucky over the years to have fantastic teams, because there's no way I could have done it alone. They've been my sanity along with me. Really low staff turnover, which has been brilliant. And I think the culture that we've got at Headlines has always been more one of family. And I've taken the approach that these are grown adults, they're running their own lives. They don't need me to tell them what to do in or out of the office.
Right.
So I think that's worked really well.
Which is interesting also, that thing you just added about not having to tell people how you or what to do, and they can kind of work with that freedom, because I think that's something that came for a lot of businesses with COVID. They had to start appreciating that, shit, I got to trust these people to just do what I expect them to do from home, kind of thing. A lot of businesses are not ready for that, but I think the media space, we were kind of ready for that. We've always kind of been geared towards that.
Yeah, I think because we were early adopters with technology as well. So it enabled us to, we were Zooming a long time before we had to.
100%.
So
a lot of banks, like very traditional industries that you would expect on the cusp.
Yeah.
We're like, Zoom, Hangouts, what the hell?
I remember my first Zoom with a client. I was a bumbling idiot. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Yeah. So, and now, 4 years later, people are still saying, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah,
so I still don't think we've got it.
Such an idiot anymore.
And no, so the team's been absolutely amazing. Like really, it's kudos to them.
Yeah.
And it's give and take on both sides.
Yeah.
They have unbelievable loyalty and as much freedom and responsibility.
So, firstly, thank you for sharing your story. I've actually probably have heard it a few times over the years, but I'm glad you're sharing it with the listeners, which is quite nice. You've touched on, there's so much that you've touched on, and actually as you've been talking, I've been taking a few notes down, because I think what I'd like to do is take some of the stuff, because there's way too much to go through right now in one episode. Obviously, we try to keep these episodes to 15, 20 minutes. People, it's bite size. No one cares enough about me or my journey as much as I'd like people to care as much about me and my journey and like the thing that I'm on, to listen for a full hour. So we try to keep this as short as possible. So I've taken down a few notes, and what I think we'll do is create another episode with you where we discuss some of the stuff you've discussed. But I want to go through some of the things that you've discussed, because a few of the things you mentioned were actually fall into the realm of marketing in a big way. And obviously that's my space where I play for the most part. And that's where my strengths are. I've been doing it for a very long time. So as you were talking, I don't think you might not even realize you were talking about a lot of marketing stuff, but we'll save that for another episode. Some of the stuff that you discussed, though, I think was really important, because one of the things that I've learned, well, number one is you talked about luck. You were very lucky. A couple of times you mentioned, hey, I was very lucky. Just so you know, guys, and I'm saying this because for me, this is a value of this podcast. It's something that I feel like is an important message to share on this podcast, because this podcast has a specific mission, and there's certain values within this podcast that I feel are very important. And one of those values, you've talked about luck. I don't believe in luck, and this podcast doesn't believe in luck. This podcast believes that you make your own luck, and that luck is a skill. And so when people, a lot of the time, I will look at someone who says, hey, I was lucky and I got this, and I'll say, hey, yeah, you were quite lucky, well done. But a lot of the time people underplay the hand that they actually, or the role that they played in their own luck. So while you say that you were lucky, I know how good you are at what you do. I want you to go forward in your life and stop saying that you were lucky about things, because I think you made your luck and you set the stance for where you landed.
Well, I think, we started out the conversation and I said before we started recording, I'm not sure how to condense it.
All right.
And I was thinking now, did I give too much detail? Because it was about taking advantage of the opportunities that presented itself. So I tend to agree, but not entirely, because there is an element of luck that allowed me to be presented with those opportunities.
Yeah.
But yes, maybe skill, foresight, and in later years experience.
Yeah.
And
drive and diligence.
Yeah.
And that's I guess is what I'm saying about this podcast, and the message that I'm trying to push across here is we make our own luck, because I promise you that 10 people would be given the same opportunity as you, and 7 out of them would squander that opportunity because they lack all those other things that you've just mentioned. The drive and the skill and the foresight and all that. They lack that.
But I still think that there's another 10 people on the other side of the spectrum that would have made the agency soar to 10 times its size.
Are you picking up a little bit of one of our previous episodes was about mindset, positive
Yes.
versus negative mindset? Are you guys picking up? If you have listened to that, go listen to it. It's a very good episode.
Was it? It's my bitch voice.
Yeah, you're talking bitch voice. As far as I'm concerned, you're making
Yeah.
excuses for yourself. You're saying, "Hey, but I could have done more." No, I'm saying be proud of yourself. Like, can you see the difference
Yes.
in reticular activating system? My reticular activating system is completely positive about it. It's like, hey man, you fucking killed it, well done. And your reticular activating system is, I could have done more, and I'm not really as good as I could have actually got a better opportunity. Anyway, I'm not. I think it's a very good conversation actually, because it just shows you how different people see the world in such different ways. That's the conversation that you were talking about in terms of luck. Well, that you mentioned about luck. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing I think that was quite interesting was when you were talking about your early days. So this resonated with me. You were talking about your early days, and you were saying how you kind of just went to the AAA school and you went to a lecture and you sort of stumbled into PR. And would you say you're passionate about PR?
I'm passionate about the people.
Okay.
I love the client interaction. I love being able to pick out the stories. There's parts about it I don't enjoy, I must be honest. The side of the media where you at their disposal, you can be as
Their beck and call.
top of your game. You can have the best story, all the parts align, and yet...
It's not good enough.
Well, and not even about the media. Ramaphosa can go and make an announcement and all your news stories fall off the page and it's no longer
if
no
all
longer
your
news.
hard work falls away.
Yes.
Jesus, that's a perspective I never even would have
So
thought
there's
of.
so much beyond your control, which can be a little bit
And you
disheartening.
don't enjoy that,
I don't enjoy not having control. I like being in control.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy, and I'll say it again, I've loved working with the team over all 28 years,
Yeah.
the people that have come and gone.
Yeah.
And formed really, really good special relationships
Yeah.
with them. So I've enjoyed that part.
Yeah. It's interesting because the reason I ask, are you passionate about it, is because when you were talking about how you kind of stumbled into the world of PR and landed up here 28 years later running a PR agency, and I think that from my perspective, a very successful PR agency. The reason I ask about passion is my background, obviously, with my previous business was we were a white label digital agency. So we supported other digital agencies with fulfillment and resources. And one of the most common things that we saw in that business as we met digital agencies all over the world was more often than not, you get your different size of agencies. You were talking about one person would have taken that business and made it soar, whereas somebody else is just like happy to have their 5 or 6 clients and get on with life. One of the things that I saw time and time again from some of the digital agencies was you find and this again is in the digital agency space, but I believe that this is in a lot of business industries. You find what happens with the owner of the business is they're passionate or very good at one particular thing. In the digital space, I'll use it as an example. They are passionate or very good at web design, or they are passionate or very good at social media. That's what they love doing. So what do? They start finding a few clients, and maybe they start building a little bit of an agency around them. They get 1 or 2 employees, and they have a team of freelancers, and they carry on with what they're doing. And what tends to happen in businesses from what I saw with those guys is they hit a roof where they never progress past it. They never poke their head through the roof and say, hey, I'm actually doing pretty good at this. I'm still passionate about social media, and I still love doing it on a day-to-day basis. But all I have to do is stop doing it myself and start relying on people around me. And I can actually go out and grow the business. But they're not passionate about business growth. It's not an ambition that they have to grow their business. So they stay the rest of their lives doing social media campaigns and working in the trenches and working in the detail of campaigns. And I think it's such an important thing to point out. That's why I asked about it, is because if you are living in that world in your own business, and this again, we like to make this podcast as practical as possible, but take a real good look at yourself in your own business and determine, are you still doing 5 years into your business, 10 years into your business? Are you still doing the day-to-day stuff?
Well, I think what happens when you get too big in any role, in any industry, if you get promoted and then you're no longer doing the things that you love.
Right.
So in the context of media, you'll get a journalist that loves writing, but he'll get promoted to editor, and then he's no longer writing anymore.
Right.
You manage it.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to stop dealing with clients.
Right.
And
so and I saw that time and time again, that exact example of a writer who becomes a manager, because that's what we saw in the copywriting business a lot, was we'd have to promote someone into a management role where they were sub-editing now or doing something, and over and over again, a lot of people just weren't cut out for it. They loved writing, so we would push them back down. And but I guess it comes down to determination and focus and goal orientation. Are you as a business owner orientated, and are you determined to grow your business beyond what it is? Because you'll never grow it if you continue to be in the levels that you're in.
so it's so interesting that you asked that question, because I'm at a time in my life now where my kids are bigger and one's out the house, needing me less. I have more time to focus on me and my business.
Right.
So previously I've been half day mom, so it's been difficult.
Are you saying that you're entering a space in your life where you're maybe thinking, maybe it's time for me to grow this beyond?
Exactly.
Interesting.
I am thinking now exactly that. Kids are out needing me less. I can now focus on growing the business and actually being deliberate about it.
Yeah.
So where do I want to be? And I hate the question because it's so cliche, but where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
So I want to be able to handpick the parts that I enjoy, and I want to be able to grow it to a size that I can then employ the skills to complement mine.
Yeah.
You know, I know where I'm lacking, and I know where I could do better.
Right. So obviously, as I say, as we try to make this podcast as practical as possible for anybody who's listening and going potentially in exactly the same space as you're at, what are you doing right now to make that dream come true?
I think the first step was partnering with CBR Marketing.
Right.
I was looking for digital marketing partners for a very long time. I have freelance skills, but I think partnering with a company where our skills really complement each other, and having access to their resources has been really good for headlines.
Right.
I am currently speaking to a coach, which sitting on the fence at the moment if it's the right thing for me or not. And I've been very, very proactive over the last, let's say, 5 months about lead generation and going out and actively looking for business. So it is a process, and I'm only just starting it. I don't know where it's going to go or which path I'm going to take with it.
Right.
But I am actively thinking about this. I don't have all the answers yet.
And it's so interesting because you and I talk a lot personally. We connected quite a lot during the week, and this is the first time that you've expressed your vision for the future of your business to me on a professional level.
Interesting.
So, and because this is exactly, and this is what I'm very good at as well, is helping people who are in that space going, hey, I need some help. I'm thinking about this strategically. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's so interesting. It took a formal podcast, formal for our relationship anyway. It's not
I think it would have come out anyway.
Eventually,
in fact,
right.
I mean, it's only literally maybe 5 days old.
Oh, is this
the coach that I met was
Yes,
5
yes,
days.
yes.
So it is really, really
No,
new.
but talking about your lead generation, that's something that I think
yes.
you've hinted at over the last couple of months, but I never really picked up on, like, hey, she's focused on lead generation. Maybe there's a reason for it. And now it's the first time you actually said, hey, the kids are a bit older. I'm starting to think about what's the next stage for my business, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah,
So
I think it
that's
would have
cool.
come out anyway
Yeah.
because I know, I mean, we've spoken about your skill set
Yes.
with regard to, helping your sister and her
Yes,
business
right.
and this is, I think our conversation around this podcast came out around those kind of conversations about how good you are at growing businesses and at adding value to other businesses
right.
and looking at the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yes.
So it would have
So
undoubtedly
maybe
come out.
you're more along the same journey as me than we thought.
Well, I've never done the corporate stuff. I've
No,
consulted
yeah.
to a lot of
Yeah.
corporates, but I've never worked in a
Yeah,
corporate.
yeah. But do you feel like what difference does that make? That you've never worked in a corporate?
I suppose taking the leap of faith is the same.
Yeah.
You taking the
You're
leap
still
of
an
faith.
entrepreneur
Still,
in a sense, in that you're taking
I'm
a
not
risk.
exiting though. I'm not. I have no intention of doing that. So it's still same but different.
Yeah.
It is. It's in the next
Yeah.
phase.
Well, it's interesting, I think, and it's an opportunity to I mean, the way I see the world in terms of, if anyone young is listening and they're going, hey, how does business work? I don't know how business works. We all just kind of figuring it out as we go, right? And we're trying to do our best, and we make decisions on the fly, and we hope that those decisions result in what we want. But how does the infrastructure or the actual layout line work of business from my perspective is you start out as a freelancer. That's like where you are, and if you're doing something for yourself. Well, how does the entrepreneurial journey start? You start out as a freelancer, and for so many years I spoke to people and they were like, oh, I'm a freelance journalist or I'm a freelance web designer. I'm like, mate, you're not a freelance anything. You're running your own business. Stop calling yourself a freelancer. You're actually running a business that you should be holding yourself accountable. You are your own employee. Pay yourself a salary, kind of thing.
Yes, correct.
So you're a freelancer, then either you get a job and you work for someone else, and maybe you get a job and you go work for corporates. But if you decide to go down that freelance route and you're running your own business, the journey continues when you start to go, hey, I'm starting to take on more work than I have capacity for. I've got to get an employee, and you start pushing that stuff away to an employee. And I think that's where the passion question comes in, because for most people, in my experience, they stick at that point and they're like, I still love doing web design. I'm just going to have my one employee and I'm going to keep doing what I do. And they'll always be at that level where they're making a couple of grand a month or whatever it is, and they're happy to do that. They're not driven by ambition or money or the desire to grow and like take over the world like you and I are. But
Well, you.
but if for those that determine, hey, I actually do want to grow this business to the next level, they have to start pushing that stuff, and they have to stop doing that web design stuff or social media stuff or talking to clients stuff, because they need to push that stuff away because it takes up too much of their time. We only have time and money. Those are the only two assets we really have. So once they start pushing that stuff away, only then are they able to put their head out of the sand and go, okay, cool, how do I grow this business? How do I bring on more employees? How do I bring on more clients so that I'm able to serve those clients? And slowly you start, and eventually if you are good enough at it, which hopefully one day maybe I'll be, you can build your business.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Maybe you can build your business into a corporate. Like that's, I think, how the corporates all started.
You see, I don't even know if I want that. I don't think.
Well,
The corporate is of many sizes,
right.
but
Well, that's the question. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And I don't agree with you at all. It's not a cliche question at all. I think it's a super important question. And that's a conversation, ironically, I had with my sister today about her business. And I was saying, right, what is the 5-year goal for this business? Because she's never done any strategy in the business because she's too busy running the business. And I'm loving helping her get her head out of the sand, because that's something that I've been lucky enough to go through in the corporate. We say it's corporate. It was an agency as well, but it became a lot more corporate as I stayed there. But it's a journey that I was lucky enough to go through as the business started to grow bigger and bigger, and we as a business became more and more corporate focused, like executives and things like that. I also was, by our CEO at the time, he also had to really stretch me out of my role and get me to leave a lot of stuff behind and start changing the way that I thought about business. And that's the only reason I think about these things now, because I was exposed to that, and I was exposed to books, and I was exposed to coaching, and which I think is a great thing for you, because it exposes you to this world of seeing things and problems from a different perspective that someone else is seeing it, that's maybe got more experience than you, that goes, hey, you haven't thought about it like this, and you go, oh wow, that's really helpful. Because I think that's when your mindset starts to change, and you that's when you start to see the potential, when you can start to sit down and go, wow, what do I want for 5 years of this business? And when you can see that in 5 years' time and go, okay, cool, that's where I'm going to be in 5 years.
And
you
be
start,
deliberate about
exactly,
it.
and you
Yes.
start putting together a strategy cascade. You start saying, these are the OKRs that I need to achieve. These are my objectives, and this is my why. We talk about why in one of the episodes. Why? This is my why. Why have I got this objective? To be financially stable and make money in the business. Why? Just somewhere because you want to do it, or because you actually have a goal to achieve. So it's so interesting, because when I sat down, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask Simone to just share her story. Never thought we would get to this stage, and we've got another episode about this, guys. Catch the next one as well, please, because there's a bunch of stuff that, as I mentioned, that you mentioned in your thing that I want to talk about in another episode. We've already done half an hour of this episode, so part 2 coming soon. Sim, you've done very well, by the way. Pat yourself on the back. Good sharing.
Thanks, Steve.
Goodbye, guys. We'll chat soon.